becoming a maestro of pricing, right? Human nature is so fascinating to observe. And something that all course creators, including myself, go through is the guilt of pricing and charging for your own knowledge, right? It's very natural to feel guilty at first and uncomfortable at first selling what you know, right? Literally charging for information in your brain. But, right, a big but, understand that human nature naturally makes us feel this way, but we have the ability to reflect and observe it rather than feeling, taking it too personally. And what helped me is that hundreds of millions of dollars exchange hands for information products every day, right? And if I don't capture that value, then someone else will, right? If I don't build my dream life, if I don't build a massive passive income business, if I don't, help thousands of people leave the 9-to-5 grind like I did, right, then somebody else will. And when I first started, right, I was so terrified to charge other people for my knowledge or, for my consulting or for my courses. And the interesting thing that I noticed was whatever amount I was confident charging other people was an exact representation of the amount I was confident in investing in myself in courses, right? And let me explain what I mean. If I invested $1,000 into an online course, I felt confident charging $1,000 because I personally paid that, right? And there's been courses where I said, okay, that was definitely worth it. And there's been courses where I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just pay $1,000 for, right? Or if I joined a mastermind for $5K, I was confident charging $5K for a mastermind. And so I really started to recognize this pattern, right? The prices that you are confident charging others are really just a mirror, right? A reflection of the prices you're comfortable investing in yourself. And think about college, right? College is the best example. It's perfectly acceptable, right? And society has accepted it. Most people have accepted it. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people pay it every single year. To charge someone $50,000 a year to learn, pretty outdated information from professors who are generally pretty apathetic, right? And are nowhere near as passionate as you will be teaching your students. And when comparing a $50,000 per year college, where you learn antiquated information from overpriced textbooks, all of a sudden charging $997 or $1,997 sounds like a pretty amazing alternative if it can jumpstart a career. Most of the time, if it's a good course, right, a career that's more lucrative and that gives you more real world applicable skills than college would, even though it's 50 times more expensive, right? And you might be surprised that people right now are charging $99, $1,000, or even $50,000 or more for knowledge products, right? I have friends that are in the Tony Robbins Platinum Mastermind that's $75,000 a year, right? How could someone do that? Think about it like this, right? Seth Godin is a genius author. I love his stuff. He says, perhaps the reason price is all your customers care about is because you haven't given them anything else to care about, right? And think about it. Have you gone to college? How much does it typically cost for one class, right? One class generally costs thousands of dollars. And a class at a community college might be cheaper, but it's still hundreds of dollars, right? Imagine the impact your content can have on someone's life, right? What is it worth? Because when you start to create a more and more successful business, sometimes little ideas or one new tool or strategy can increase your earnings by thousands, right? One new thing that somebody could learn in your course, right? Especially people with more successful businesses that just need that one strategy or that one tool that can change everything, right? And the value of a course changes when it can have a categorical impact on someone's finances. If your course makes someone $100,000, is your course worth $100,000, right? And that might seem like an obvious question, but it's actually not, right? Because most people would say that it's not worth $100,000. But what if your course makes someone $1 million over a year, right? Is it worth $100,000? And that answer should obviously be yes, but whether or not someone would pay $100,000 is another question, right? And a really important mindset shift is understanding that what you're teaching is worth more than the money it costs. Because if you believe that, right, you no longer feel seller's guilt. Most people don't realize that what you're actually doing people a favor by them buying your course, right? Especially if it's a high quality course, something that has the potential to really change someone's life, right? You're no longer going to feel seller's guilt that everyone naturally feels at first if you truly believe that what is inside of your course is worth more than the price tag for the course. And believe me, it felt weird charging $997 for my knowledge, right? But thousands of people have paid that. And the best part is, for a large majority of those people, right, that $997 investment has since turned into hundreds of thousands or even millions, right? And I know it might seem awkward to charge for your course. Trust me, I get that, right? But first of all, right, it's how you're going to get paid as a course creator. And secondly, and more importantly, right, it's how you're going to hold people accountable to their goals. It's like we talked about, right? When you pay attention. It's as simple as that. You know, I told this story earlier about when I was in New Zealand, and you know, it cost $250 a month for the only gym. I paid it, and I went twice a day, every day, to get my money's worth, right? The same concept applies to your course. And your course is extremely valuable, right? If it's built correctly and with, you know, all of the knowledge that you have personally, all of the knowledge that you accumulate and curate from all of the top other course creators, right? All of the publicly available blogs and YouTube videos, right? If you aggregate all of the best content from all of the top, you know, minds, what you're charging for is more than fair. But to set a baseline, right, take a look at what other people in your niche are charging. What you're going to find is some people are charging $67 a month. Some people are charging $497. Some people are charging $997, $1997, right? Some people are charging $2,500. Some people are charging $5,000. There's all these different prices that people have for their products, right? And what you want to do is you want to try to find 5 to 10 other courses, right, or at least 3, and try to formulate some type of average, right? But we're not going to copy them. And I'll talk about what we're going to do in a second. I created this little matrix here of what you want to actually charge for your products, right? A small problem solving course, right? A tell people what to do digital course. Something that's small, $0 to $47, right? A medium problem, $97 to $297, and a large problem, $297 to $497. That's just telling people what to do, right? That's like mindset stuff. A show people how to do it digital course, small problem, you know, 50 to 100, 300 to 500, 500 to 1,000, right? A show people how digital course with 24/7 committed support, right? And what I mean by that is a private group where you're helping people one-on-one. Inside the private group, you know, you have customer service reps, maybe you have coaches. You know, that a small problem would be 100 to 300, 500 to 1,000, or a large problem, you know, you can charge anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000. And confidence is key, guys, in every aspect of life, right? You have to feel confident about your price point. It has to be something that you feel excited about, and in your heart and in your gut, you know you're going to get paid what you're worth, right? And if you have just no idea and like everything just went completely over your head, charge either $497 or $997 and don't even think about it, right? Literally, I've seen so little difference between $497 and $997 that I just blanket raised all of my courses from $497 to $997. The market has become acclimated to $997 for a course, right? $997 or $397 times 3 months for a payment plan. So it's $200 more in the end, but they can spread it out over 3 months. That's, you know, if you have no idea what to do that. Loyal customers, right? You have to be willing to deliver 10x the actual value you're promising, right? This is how you create wildly loyal customers who are going to tell all their friends and all their family about you. And the perfect clientele, right? The price point you choose demands the kind of clientele that you want to attract, right? The minimum you should charge for your course is $47, right? For something that takes less than a month to create and is mainly for the purpose of getting new people into your ecosystem, right? Getting new people into your group, your Facebook group, getting new people into your email list. $47 is okay for like a fitness course or a relatively easy course that should not take more than a month total to create, right? Let's say that you realize that the average in your particular niche is everyone's charging $397, right? Some people are charging $197, some people are charging $697, whatever, right? I have a very strong feeling about this next part, so let's have another quick story to kind of emulate this, or to explain this, excuse me. I remember one time buying a necklace for my girlfriend at the time, and I wanted it to be special, right? I wanted it to be the best. And I narrowed it down between 2 necklaces that looked exactly the same, right? One was $9.97, one was $99.95. And even though the necklaces looked indistinguishably similar, I ended up buying the more expensive one Because people associate price with value, right? It's why jewelry businesses exist. Because the truth is, diamonds aren't rare, right? They're just strictly supply controlled by the diamond conglomerates to artificially boost demand, boost demand and make it seem like they're rare, right? I always want my course to be the most valuable course out there. So I go above and beyond what other people are charging from a value perspective, right? From a one-on-one perspective, from a resources perspective, from an update perspective, from me actually giving a you-know-what perspective. Everything, right? And because of this, I never want to be the cost leader. I don't want to be the cheapest, right? I always want to be the luxury option. And I did this with my Amazon business. I do this with my courses. I do this in every business that I create, right? Because what happens is it generally takes the same amount of effort to attract 1,000 people to your webinar or to your course. And if you sell 3% of them at $9.97 or a little bit more than that at $47, like 10% at $47, it's a wildly different amount of money, right? Wildly. And a 1 to 3% conversion is very, you can expect that, right? With a really well-created webinar, which we're going to teach you how to do. So my favorite pricing is as follows, right? Tested everything, subscription plans, selling portions of a course, selling only one module at a time, right? I've done $97, I've done $20,000, right? There's no question in my mind, $497, $997, no discounts are by far the best. Right? If you're doing a make money online, anything related to make money online, just trust me and choose $997, right? Just trust me. If you're doing something that's not make money online, like something related to relationships, something that's related to health, right? Then you have to think a little bit deeper about what you want to do, right? But ask the DCS private family, right? $47 to $497 for something that's not make money online, right? I still tend to charge more and just give them more value, care more, right? Be more one-on-one, still charge $497, even for health and relationships. And remember, if you ever do discounts, like for Black Friday, for Christmas, for whatever, people will get upset with you, right? If they recently bought your course for $997 and the next day is Black Friday and you discount it to $497, right? This is gonna have a permanent effect on the perceived value of your course, which is why I never discount, right? Or I try to. I've done it in the past and I learned, and now I never discount. And even though you're going to see, your friends and other people who said, hey, I made $10,000 as I discounted, right? Now you're not going to see all the angry emails and people who now won't buy their course because they wish they would have gotten it for half off, right? If you have a course on how to make money, you can demand higher prices, right? If you have a course on fitness or something non-financial, your pricing has to be significantly lower, right? Because it's just not worth it to someone to pay $997 to learn how to get abs, right? And also the incumbents and the people who already exist in the market are charging $47, right? So your business model is going to thrive off volume if you do something related to fitness versus something a little bit more high ticket like make money online, right? And if your competitors are all charging $19 or $47 a month, what you can do instead is just charge $97, right? $97 a month. Give way more value, more one-on-one help, right? And then you become the luxury leader. Even though it's just $97 a month, all your competitors are charging $19, right? So people see, your necklace and their metaphorical necklace, and they think that yours must be more valuable, right? And I know selling might not be your favorite activity, but when people pay you, it gives them the transformation they need to change their lives. When you pay attention, right? And you're going to see that all of the selling resources below have been specifically set up to be as hands-off and as automated as possible, right? You're never going to have to pick up a phone unless you enjoy it. I've never made a sales phone call in my freaking life that I didn't want to make, right? Because every time I did it, I was learning, right? And then once I learned, I created a script. And once I had created a script, I outsourced it to call centers and to people who would do it for a significantly affordable, for a very affordable price that was worth it to me to have more time freedom to pursue higher value activities, right? And think about it like this. Let's do some math to illustrate, just how big this thing can get if you get your traffic down, right? Which is going to be the sole purpose of Chapter 6. How many website visitors do you need to make $5 million at a 1% conversion percentage, right? If your product costs $5, you need 100 million visitors, right? In the past 18 months, making over $10 million, I've not had 100 million visitors, right? If your product costs $19.97, right, you need 250,000 visitors, and we get that in a month or two, right? The sweet spot for courses is between $497 and $1997. Anything under that, you're not maximizing your traffic conversion percentage. Anything over that, you pretty much need a sales team and phone closers, because people aren't comfortable spending over $2,000 without actually talking to a real person, right? And you know, phone teams are not the hardest thing in the world to set up, but when you're first getting started, you don't want to spend time on that, right? You want to always go after the low-hanging fruit and you know, do the things that are going to make the largest impact in your business, and trying to go orchestrate like a whole phone team and things like that just isn't worthwhile, right? People are accustomed to paying $997, right? And if you're just making a course that solves a big problem, you know, or makes people money, just set it at that and forget it, right? This doesn't apply to all niches, but there's courses on nutrition and self-education, you know, that might be a little bit cheaper, but it's important to understand distance equals money, right? Think about it like this: cost of you know, your course versus college. $2,000, 4 payments of $597 for a course that could potentially change your life, or you know, 20 to 200 grand for potentially antiquated information where you get a major in anthropology that's not applicable to your life, right? Time, 40 hours to complete or 4+ years. Real world skills with your course, heck yeah, right? But college, not really. Relevance, right? Teaching method, resources, earnings potential. You know, I love to kind of give these examples because it really paints a clear picture that everybody's okay with paying 200 grand, up to 200 grand for college, but people won't pay $1997, right? No way. People pay $1997, $997, thousands and thousands of times every single day, right? You just have to have an offer out there, right? And eyeballs and the attention currency on it, and you will get sales. I promise you, right? And the further that you take someone in their transformation, the more you can charge for your courses, right? I've tested the absolute heck out of this, right? We've talked about this. Just charge $997 unless you feel really strongly about charging less, right? $497, and then charge $497. Never price the lowest, right? Be the premium brand. Don't doubt yourself. And promise me 3 things, right? Become a passionate learner, because sometimes the best way to learn something fully is to teach it, right? People, you know, this has become an idiom and it's become a saying for a reason. Teaching lets you learn something in a way you've never learned it before, because you have to actually teach other people, right? Confront and overturn and shatter your limiting beliefs and create a new worldview paradigm that allows you to venture outside of your comfort zone comfortably, right? And then promise me that you're going to stick to the process, right? Take consistent daily action until the compound interest that you're accumulating exponentiates, right? Compound interest is one of the greatest forces on earth, and now you have the unique ability to leverage it in a way that has an infinitely high ceiling, right? If you create a digital course, you can sell 1 million copies and you never run out of stock, right? You can spend $1 on ads and get $2 back. You can spend $1,000 on ads and get $2,000 back, right? And when you can do that and you never stock out, that's infinite scale, right? And you can't afford to lose this for a day, because when you lose sight of your dream, you so quickly become a part of someone else's dream, right? People ask me this all the time. Kevin, what is the most vital, life-changing, you know, world-rocking piece of advice that you could possibly give us, right? What's the number one thing that, if nothing else mattered, made you successful, right? And I knew the answer immediately, and I know this sounds cliche, but it's the truth, right? The truth is, the number one thing that made me successful is the fact that I didn't give up. It didn't even register as an option in my brain, right? What happened was I chose all the wrong things. I tried to make an iOS app called Quiz Pixel. No one downloaded it, right? It cost me $2,000, took me 6 months. I tried to make an online travel blog called Eat, Sleep, Trek, Repeat, right? Nobody visited the site. I wrote like 30 articles about, you know, the top 10 things to do in Greece and all of this stuff. No one visited it, right? I didn't know what I was doing. I tried to monetize niche websites with Google AdSense, which was wrong, right? I did everything wrong, but by doing all the wrong things, I eventually found the right thing, which is an information product, creating a digital movement, right? And I was able to distinguish what the right things were and what the wrong things were. And I transgressed through every possible variation and found out what worked and what didn't, and I eventually got to this point, right? But what would have happened if I had done everything wrong and I had given up after Quiz Pixel, right? Or I'd given up after my niche sites, right? And if I'd given up before I broke through to creating digital products that created this massive business in such a short amount of time, right? I also realized that I had evolved into my next form. Right, I was no longer the same person as before. I wasn't the same person who just mindlessly listened to orders in my cubicle, right? I've literally become someone else who questions everything, right? I don't care if I'm talking to a billionaire. If they tell me something, I'm not going to assume it's right. I'll question it, right? I've stopped listening to the hive mind. I've stopped just taking orders from society, right? But instead, I've learned to think for myself and come to my own conclusions with careful experimentation and self-reflection, right? I remember meeting one of my original students. This was a long time ago, right? She was in her 40s, she was shy, she had a corporate job, and she had literally, self-admittedly been brainwashed similar to how I was with my corporate job, right? By society, by the cubicle life. For decades, she had been in the corporate grind. And I was thinking to myself, right? I didn't say this out loud, but I was thinking to myself, wow, she's gonna have a hard time making this work, right? But the thing I didn't realize is she is not the same person now that she was when she joined DCS. She is a totally new person, right? She used to think success was climbing the corporate ladder, right? And now she's making $30K a month from home, which is significantly more than she was making at her corporate job, right? While working significantly less hours, even after decades in the workforce, right? So she's making, 10 times more now, 5 times more now than she was making at her corporate job that took her decades to get to that point, right? She's making 5 times more now, working less hours with DCS, right? And that was after decades in the workforce, right? And how did she do this? Just following the DCS blueprint, and she did it in 1/20th of the time, and she's making 5 times more, right? That is powerful. And the funny thing is, I did the exact same thing, right? You might be thinking, Kevin, you're the same person you've always been. You're right. I do have the same body. Technically, I still am Kevin, but I'm a completely different person than who I was when I was trapped at PwC inside of my cubicle, right? I was a person who lacked confidence. I didn't think outside the box. I didn't question anything. I just listened to orders, right, from the status quo. The things that had been done the way they'd always been done, I didn't question it, right? I was self-centered, and I expected the world to change for me without me having to change myself. And old Kevin, past Kevin, thought money was difficult to get, right? And that I should save money because that's how you get money. That Kevin thought you should turn off all the lights to conserve energy. But now everything has changed, right? I live each day to the fullest. I enjoy my life and everything inside of it. And people speak about me differently when I'm not around, right? Women and men respect me more. I interact with the world with a newfound and deserved confidence because I made those internal changes that allowed me to not only see the world differently, but now the world sees me differently, right? I interact with the world intentionally. I'm not just a pinball being thrown around by life, right? I make intentional decisions, well thought out decisions. I'm self-reflective, right? When things happen to me and there's feedback, or that other people might call failure, I make changes and then I make improvements, right? That is the point of DCS, evolution. And when we are all evolving together, that is when you make real, substantial, meaningful, earth-shattering change. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one about pricing and everything that you need to know, right, about pricing. And we'll see you on the next one.